What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Lore Reloaded channel. I am your host, Lore Reloaded. If you are watching this video on demand, you know exactly how this works. I'm about to throw some social media at you while I wait for this to update and for people to get in. So, if you haven't, definitely check me out at twitter.com/Lore Reloaded. There's a lot of fun stuff that is going on that end. You can talk, have conversations. I don't just talk about Trek or lore. It's a better way of getting to interact with me. So definitely check that out. And if you haven't, you can go to facebook.com/Lore Reloaded. Though I wouldn't suggest that way. I'm probably going to drop the Facebook. It is just not working for me. Though we do have Michelle Leto. Good evening, Lore. Good evening to you. Nate Watson in the house. Darian Anderson, 14K Leon, what's going on? Disappointed Optimist, been talking to me throughout the day. How you doing? No more Discovery, that is true. There is no more Discovery. Hello from your greatest French fan, Jeremy Charles. The greatest French fan has arrived, guys. We can finally get started because the greatest French fan is here. Of course, Gary Moncourt, Daniel, and Cyborg XG1. This place wouldn't be here without Cyborg XG1. So, I'm going to change the name. I'm not really convinced I'm not really sure what I'm going to change it to. I kind of like doing an AfterTrekShow just because it's kind of trolling Discovery, but it'll be changed. We will still be doing Sundays. I've decided what I'm going to do is we're going to start breaking down different characters, different events, stations, things like that. Kind of like a live lore video, which will be a lot of fun. So we'll be keeping it on Sundays. For today, I'm going to be playing Star Trek Adversaries. I don't know how long that's going to last. If I can't focus, I'm going to turn it off. Fun thing, though, Star Trek Adversaries has told me that they're going to come up with a way where I can specifically invite you guys and we can play one-on-one. So I'll be doing this on Twitch. I'll be doing it other places where we can have a one-on-one game against each other. Today, we're going to be talking about the man, the myth, Benjamin Sisko. And the good things about him, the bad things about him, and why he deserves to be in a Federation prison for most of his life. Though the reason why I think should surprise you. Hey, Laura, says Johnny Doe. How's the recovery coming? Completely recovered, feeling good. My jaws are still a little sore, but not that bad. Daniel Bertazon. Laura, did you hear CBS and Paramount is talking about re-merging? Well, hopefully Paramount takes over and I don't have to deal with CBS. Alright, so let's get into it. If I can spell my name right, that would help. Let's go with ready. All right, so let's get into, before I start actually playing this, let's talk about Benjamin Sisko. Let's break down Benjamin Sisko specifically. And as Disappointed Optimist says, you can't put Sisko in a Federation prison. He is literally Space Jesus. That's true. Clark85 was going on. I really liked Benjamin Sisko, and an interesting or intriguing thing is the actor for Benjamin Sisko is so different from the character, and yet he has just a great perspective on Benjamin as well. So let's start from the beginning. Avery Brooks. I couldn't think of the name. Saved my life, man. I do this for a living. Avery Brooks is so different from Benjamin Sisko. It's just amazing to me. But let's start it from the beginning. So the one thing I like about Deep Space Nine is that it shows that captains can and are different, and that Starfleet does utilize these captains appropriately, and he does it in a different for different situations, they put the right man for the job. Now, before we get into that, I do have a super chat coming from Nate Watson. Guys, if you want to help the channel grow, if you want to make sure that I'm able to continue to do this and take it to the next level, I'm actually about to hire someone on to start doing some more of the graphics and stuff. And it's because of super chats. It's because of people who support me at patreon.com/Lore Reloaded. It's because of stuff like that that helps me do that. But Super Chat, which I got to dance. Which Sisko war criminal act will you talk about? For the uniform or conspiring to get the Romulans in the war? I will talk about both, but I think for the uniform is what actually should put him in jail. But we'll get into that. And I got a dance nerd, apparently, so I'm going to dance for you guys just for a second. So, I think that when you take a look at Starfleet, it will... they will put different captains for different jobs. And I think that Sisko is quite obviously a Jellicoe type character. And Deep Space Nine really took it in a different way because instead of exploring, they put them on this remote outpost. A lot of people forget, but Deep Space Nine was supposed to be this backwater planet that everybody forgot, that nobody had any real interest in. Bajor at the beginning had very little, my editor's behind me, had very little strategic value and very little worth after what the Cardassians had done to them. But Starfleet looked at that and realized that they needed more than just a diplomat. That a diplomat isn't going to be able to handle it. They need someone like Jellicoe who's going to get his hands dirty, which I think is very interesting and shows more depth to Starfleet when you think about it. And a lot of things that Ben does, in my opinion, especially starting out, I don't think you would see Picard do. He gets his hands dirty. He's willing to coerce Quark. There's a lot to it that you don't see Picard do. I don't think you could see Riker doing. I honestly, I don't think you could see Janeway on a good day when she's not pushed to the brink do. The one closest I think you would see doing is probably Lorca, honestly. Maybe Kirk. But I think he's singularly different in this. And so I will give it that. I will say that Deep Space Nine added depth and added this kind of military mentality to it. At Lore Reloaded, wasn't Jellicoe put in by the show writers to make you hate him or see him as the wrong bad captain, says No Stripe 361. So here's the thing with Jellicoe. At least when it came to the flagship Enterprise, and you know, I've gone back and forth on this, at least when it came to the flagship Enterprise, the Enterprise crew, he was militaristic. He was somewhat war-hungry, and they didn't like him. Now, is Enterprise representative of the entire Federation? Given that it's during the Gene Roddenberry era, I would be willing to say yes. But I think that started to change after Wolf 359, which is why Starfleet started to have more depth, started to embrace Jellicoe types more, in my opinion. But he was made out to be the bad guy to some aspects, right? And so you have Sisko, and he was willing to, again, I think I've said this a couple times, he was willing to do what other people weren't willing to do. And sometimes he went too far. So I put war criminal in there, and I don't know that war criminal is the right term, but I think that he should be in a prison in what he did for the uniform. And I would be curious what your guys' thoughts on this. So Sisko is sitting there, and he wants to capture a former Federation officer, right? Eddington. I think that's in For the Uniform. And so he is so caught up because Starfleet has been betrayed. He is willing to use biogenic weapons against a planet. And Starfleet apparently is okay with this in the end, which they wipe it away with like one sentence. And I am just, the more I think about it, the more amazed that they would even allow that to happen. No inquiry, nothing of that nature. And so he just gets away with it. From that point on, he should have been put in a prison, in my opinion. But I'm curious, what are your guys' opinions on that? Sisko is an everyman who'd do whatever he's driven to do, like a lot of us, says Michelle Leto. No Stripe, I don't think he was war-hungry. He was more of a pragmatist, doing what was necessary. Clark85, we all know the Dominion would have won easily without him. Let's move that aside. Let's not worry about would have the Dominion won or not. Let's look at what his actions were. What he did was definitively not Starfleet. I think that is on par with anything Janeway did, including her alliance with the Borg. He used biogenic weapons against a populace that could not defend itself, and he killed those people who were in the Maquis Raider when he didn't have to. By far, he was a villain in that instance. If anyone else had done that, if we had seen Eddington do that, if we had seen, just if Ducat had done that, then we would be up in arms. But since it's Sisko, it's okay. And is that really what we're going to stand behind? Man, there is not a game I'm good at. This is why I don't do game walkthroughs. At Lore Reloaded, Sisko was literally Space Jesus, and it seems like the universe revolves more around Michael Burnham than it does Sisko. Okay. I think the Federation was okay with Sisko's reason because it was tit for tat and was the only way to stop an all-out war with Cartassia. So that goes against all Federation morals. So it's okay to do it as long as it's vengeance. As long as we're getting what we need, right? Deal 3 damage to target disabled enemy ship. Ooh. Draw a card for each disabled. We're going to do that one. Tit for tat doesn't work with the Federation. Starfleet doesn't work like anything we've ever seen. And people don't really get that. Starfleet is an idealized humanity that doesn't exist and hasn't ever been observed. The Federation and Starfleet never attack first. They always let the other person attack, even if it means getting people killed. They are always on the defensive. They don't make war fleets till post Dominion War. I think after the Dominion War, they more become what we've seen. They are organizations that we've seen before. But before that, it's nothing that we've ever observed. So the question is, why would they let this happen beyond plot convenience, right? No Stripe 361. I'm more okay with the assassination of the Romulan senator, but I do think the bioterror attack on the civilian population was going too far. Completely agree. He should, again, be in jail because of that. I think you could, in the pale moonlight, you could make a better argument because they've been pushed to the brink. Somewhat like what you see in Discovery, they've lost almost everything. And so now he's just fighting to survive. And I think you could make an argument that at least up until the very end, he wasn't necessarily a willing accomplice. I think that he was used somewhat. Now, again, he was okay with it after the fact. But up until that point, he didn't knowingly do it. In this, and again, I think everybody, the bridge crew for sure should all be in jail as well for going through with this, by the way. So Worf, Dax, all of them. So don't get me wrong on that. You can't just follow orders. If the Cardis went aggressive after the wormhole opened, they kept Sisko on board despite him turning into a religious icon. We can get into the religion in a little bit. Right now, I more want to talk about the things that he's done and the type of person he is. So here's an interesting question about it, too. So this was post-Dominion War, before the Cold War, but we're still having issues with the Maquis, and it's very tense with the Cardassians. So is this kind of seeing Starfleet change by not pressing down on their officers when they go too far? A lot of my opinion has been that the Dominion pushed Starfleet so that they weren't. The Dominion pushed Starfleet into something they were. They pushed them into something different, especially when they were losing so horrifically, right? And so the more I think about it, I wonder if Starfleet was already changing and the cracks were already there, and that's what we're seeing when you have Starfleet commanders who are poisoning planets to stop wars with other powers. the Federation, or Starfleet, could have taken on the Cardassians. War with Cardassia wasn't necessarily a huge thing. Remember, the Klingons just absolutely destroyed them. So I think a reinitiation of the Cardassian border wars wouldn't have been as bad for the Federation. But they didn't want a war, and they were willing to look the other way. And this is similar to what we see during the assassination attempt. So again, I'll leave it to you guys. Now that I think about it, was this showing the cracks? Was the Starfleet ideals falling at this juncture? And I'm going to give it a second for it to catch up. And while I do, I'll continue playing Star Trek Adversaries. This is a free game, kind of like Hearthstone, I guess. If you like Starfleet stuff, or if you like Star Trek and you like Hearthstone, then you'll probably like this. Let's see. The Maquis were against the Federation. Starfleet likely couldn't tell the difference between civilian and military. You could argue the Maquis were using human shields. So is it okay to use biochemical weapons against a military? Let's assume that it's all military. Let's not even look at it from a civilian standpoint. It's a military action against another military force. We'll just give you that. No civilians. Is it still okay to use a biochemical weapon that's going to knock that planet out from being used by humans for, what was it, decades? 10 to 30 years? Firestorm. Why didn't even Starfleet build anything better than Deep Space Nine after they found out the wormhole was the key to the future or the war? I don't know what you're trying to ask there. Attack the Maquis would be like America dumping mustard gas on Havana to get a defector to return. Exactly. No Stripe 361. Exactly. It would be using chemical warfare on a city to get one man. Even if that city was able to get away, even if everyone in that city was able to evacuate, to get one man. This is one captain on a ship who fired a bomb that takes out a city for a decade. Pedrick Drahashuk, did he actually kill anyone, though? It doesn't matter if he killed anyone. That's my point. He used biochemical warfare to get what he wanted for one man. He did kill at least 1 to 2 people in the Maquis Raider when he could have disabled them. Completely just killed them dead. On the planet, probably didn't. They had the ability to get away. But not only was he going to do it to one planet, he was about to go through the entire demilitarized zone, doing it to planet to planet to planet to planet to get one guy. I don't believe he was bluffing. I think he was being 100% honest. And so, what's that say about us if we're sitting here trying to justify this, right? And one of the reasons I want to talk about this is because people think that I give Janeway hellacious time. No one's without sin. I think that we can discuss and go where people make mistakes. No Stripe 361, this was around the time the Federation was hit by the Borg, Cardassians, the Klingons, and renewed Romulan incursion. Of course, the more belligerent would call for action. Frago 220. It could also be since the Maquis were considered to be Federation citizens to the Cardassians, perhaps Sisko made a case that Cardassia would see the attack as a first strike. Cardassia was never a threat to Starfleet. Not really. The only time they became a threat is once they gained military technology from the Dominion. Anyone who says they were scared of them is... It's possible Starfleet was scared of them, but it's a ridiculous notion. Frago 220, I agree, though it was a very un-Starfleet thing to do and should have been disciplined, but the solution was sound for the most part. Frago 220, absolutely not. Again, it goes back to what we said. Would you use mustard gas on a city to get one man, even if it meant that no one was hurt, but that city would have to be evacuated and no one could use that city for decades? I was meaning, why did Sisko have to use his connections to update DS9? Why did Starfleet just build something better than an old space station? So Deep Space Nine in and of itself is an interesting... it's an interesting concoction. Starfleet never put a lot of resources into Deep Space Nine, even after Bajor, even after the wormhole, which is interesting. It was Bajor was someone they wanted to help, but they weren't really a priority, you know? And so they had to do things on their own, and it took forever for Starfleet to get to them. It would make sense for a station that was in the backwater that no one really cared about. Because again, he even talks about how Earth is the problem because Earth is paradise, but they're not on the fringe borderland of this backwater world. By the way, after this, I'm going to switch over because I'm just not able to focus like I'd like to. So they always had issues, even after the wormhole. I think they were excited and they sent exploratory ships, but they didn't expect the Dominion, so that's why they didn't update it. Also, but Bajor and Bajoran space was still sovereign to Bajor. So I think that there was some political issues there because Bajor might expect that if they started building a station like Space Dock or a more updated station, they could see that as an encroachment by an enemy power, that they were trading the Cardassians for the Federation. And we had issues with that at the beginning. That's one of the reasons I think that they actually chose Sisko, because I think they knew Sisko would be able to handle it, because it was going to create a rise. They were this balancing act between helping and not causing issues. Da-da-da. Deal 3 damage. Yep. Maybe it was a calculated move to make Starfleet officers unpalatable to the Maquis. If Starfleet would bomb a planet over one, they wouldn't risk accepting too many accredited defectors. Maquis were Starfleet citizens. They absolutely were. Or not Starfleet, Federation citizens. I'm a citizen of the United States. Even if I sat here and said I renounce my citizenship, the United States of America is bound by its Constitution and oath to protect me, regardless of what I say. It worked the same way in the Federation. The Federation even was duplicitous in this. They weren't Starfleet citizens until they were captured, and then they were tried for things like treason. They were tried for things as Federation citizens. So you can sit here and say they're not citizens all you want. It was just a matter of convenience for the Federation when they were and were not citizens. 14 Kalium, this wasn't about preventing war, but revenge. For Sisko, absolutely, completely agree, but that's not what's going to be said, right? Even we know the truth. That's not going to be the conversation. This was all about stopping them, preventing war, yada, yada, yada. Ultimately, the Maquis fell apart, got wiped out by the Dominion. I feel like they could have done way more with them. It's a shame they're gone now. Deep Space Nine. I think Deep Space Nine. My understanding is Deep Space Nine and the Next Generation didn't really want the Maquis. The Maquis was sit there and added as something to boost Voyager, and of course Voyager never did anything with it, because why the hell would they, right? So they wrote them out pretty early and pretty easily because they wanted to do their own thing, and you can tell that. That's why they were written out. I agree. They could have done so much with them.
Sacrifice next.
Oh, they could have done so much with them, but decided not to, and that was unfortunate, in my opinion. I can't believe I'm about to win this, by the way, since we're in that conversation. Eat him!
I accessed your data file.
Watch Atlor Reloaded waste his enemy with battle Orberths. Yeah, that's ironic. The Orberths still suck in this game too, though, so don't let that fool you. Let's see. You are Johnny Doe. You already had extremist officers. You had them in the Drumhead, and with the Phase Cloak development, Starfleet may front as perfectly moral, but they aren't and will turn a blind eye. What's going on, right, gamers? You know, Johnny Doe, that's an interesting proposition. So, let me think about that one. Because you're right. They did somewhat turn, especially with the Phase Cloak. The Phase Cloak is a really good point. It honestly, when you think about it like that, it somewhat justifies Section 31. That everything before that, especially in the Drumhead or the Phase Cloak, it was all just a matter of convenience. And then it got really serious when you take a look at Section 31. What's going to be crazy is I'm going to win this, watch. Or I'll get totally destroyed. Also, I do kind of wish the Oberth got more spotlight. Haha, dope little ship, especially with one with a Phase Cloak. Rick Van Boberson has been with me for quite a while. I think before even I got 1,000 subscribers, but you are now banned. Get the hell off my channel. The Oberth has never done anything right. It is all that is wrong in the world. And because I relied on Oberths, I'm now going to lose this game. Watch. That's science. That is absolutely science right there. Play, disable target ship, gain +1 attack. Alright, 7, 8, 9. Urgh! If I can do damage. I might actually survive this, watch. Do you think they will bring back the Phase Cloak? I don't, Hot Wheels F. I don't think they will. I always wondered what damage a hand phaser can do. Its damage always has been all over the place. Yeah, it's not consistent and never has been. It just depends on what they want that day. Do I have a ship with haste? I don't, but I have that. So they have to attack that because it's Guardian. I have that, which will do damage. Deal 1 damage to all enemy ships. Yeah, watch this. Watch this, boyos. Alright, retreat. Oh! I thought I was supposed to do it to all enemy ships. Apparently it didn't. Oh, it did! Hell yeah! Might actually win this. Rick Van Boberson, who is no longer allowed on this channel, has been banned, says, I will fight you over the Oberth. It's a good little ship that hasn't gotten any love. True fact. In the reason why the Oberth was created, not messing with you, was so that they could have a ship to destroy. That was its original creation. Now, of course, the in-universe was they had a ship because, oh yeah, they had a real ship that, you know, a science ship. But the real reason, the really real reason, was because of that. Let me switch. Which one is this? Yeah, there we are. So yeah, let me take that off so I can more focus on you guys. Sorry about that. I'm trying to do this multitasking thing. But it's pretty difficult for me. And I can take this off now. I don't need that anymore. So, yeah, it does have a, so that game's called Star Trek Adversaries. It has a Magic the Gathering meets Hearthstone. If you played Hearthstone, that's really what it's about. So getting back to Sisko and more focusing on Sisko, again, he was this officer that was willing to take and do what was needed, even if it was outside of the scope of the Federation and Starfleet ideals. And I think during Deep Space Nine, though some people have made a convincing argument now for the next generation, during Deep Space Nine, they were starting to need that. They were starting to put people who may not follow the company line to do what needed to be done. And you really see in the first episode and a couple episodes after where that was necessary. I mean, he brings everyone together on Deep Space Nine. He keeps Quark from leaving. He handles Kira, right? And I think that's a really effective way of taking care of things on the edges, and I think it's something Starfleet needed, especially in a more dangerous world. Have another super chat, by the way, guys. If you like this channel, if you like what you see, you really, the best way is, of course, to watch. You can also support the channel by doing super chats, by becoming a sponsor. I'd love to start getting more sponsors, as well as going to patreon.com/lore reloaded. I'm starting to be able to develop more. You're going to see a lot more assets, a lot more animations, because I'm going to start hiring people, and I'm able to do that because of super chats, because of support from viewers like you. Nate Wilson says, Starfleet Research ran a colony in Season 2 of TNG where they used genetic engineering to use humans as lab rats. Pre-359, Starfleet was bankrupt too. I don't remember that one, Nate. If you can do @Lore Reloaded when you do the follow-up. When did they do the testing? Because that's interesting. I guess maybe when you look at it, they were there. Deep Space Nine was just honest about it. In the edges, maybe you started seeing the cracks. And I honestly didn't think that coming into this conversation. No Stripe 361, question for those defending the attack on the Maquis. Do you guys agree with No Stripe with Trump when he said that the attack of the families of No Stripe 361, why are you making this political? Yo. Sinbad, let's not forget about the Star Trek Online fleet. We really need to continue to contribute with the fleet. Thing is, I can't select the project. Yeah, that's going to be... I'm going to do an update to that soon. I don't know we're going to continue the fleet, unfortunately. Lore, I think that was the point of DS9. The diplomacy of TNG was going to work in Deep Space Nine, and they wanted you to know that. I think it was a good dichotomy in the universe. Deep Space Nine really, really did not want to be the next generation, and they went out of their way to do that. Again, as you said, they didn't care about the Prime Directive as much as others. I honestly still think, even though most people disagree with me, that the entire premise of Deep Space Nine is a huge Prime Directive violation. But it was more pragmatic, and I think it was used correctly. One of the things, and I'm going to do a lore video about this coming up soon, is I do think that the Cardassians pulled out of Bajor because of the Cardassian border wars and because of Starfleet leaning so heavily on Cardassia. And if that were true, then you would still want a warrior like Sisko coming in. Another intriguing thing to me is that in the Next Generation, they did a lot. They did everything they could, even directly, to berate and to talk about how humanity had surpassed religion. And so, humanity had moved past what religion was. Picard was very, very honest about that. And then in Deep Space Nine, you now have Sisko, who becomes, at first he's like Moses or a prophet, ultimately becoming Space Jesus, at least for the Bajorans. And so it shows a different side of religion, and I think it shows positive aspects without necessarily saying that religion was true. We got another super chat from the Right Gamers. Right Gamers is an absolutely wonderful channel. By the way, if you guys haven't checked out the Right Gamers, I would highly suggest going and taking a look at them. They do playthroughs and stuff. It's a duo. A guy and a girl. Is just absolutely wonderful. The Delta Flyer proves a convict, a Borg, a Maquis, and a cranky Vulcan can outperform the best Federation engineers with a fraction of the resources. Indeed it does. Indeed it does. Yeah, Voyager has some bad writing. So Deep Space Nine, what I like about Sisko is he starts out as an atheist. IGL Xenix, hey Lord, just dropped in to say hi. Can't stay long, sadly. Well, unfortunately, but I'll see you on the next one. Definitely come back for the next one. Sisko starts out as an atheist. I think that is obvious. And then he slowly moves to begin to revere the prophets or the wormhole aliens as gods. And it shows the positive and negative aspects of that. I think that you can make an argument that in certain episodes he betrays Betray a harsh word. He chooses the prophets. He chooses religion over Starfleet, over his family. He's willing to die. Jake, his son, is begging him. I forget the name of the episode, but he's having visions, and he needs to see these visions. He needs to see them out. He needs to see what the prophets are showing him. And his son is begging him to let Bashir do this operation on him to stop the visions. But at this point, he trusts the prophets. He's drank the Kool-Aid so much that he's willing to die to figure out what they're trying to tell him. And so he chooses religion over even his family. Firestorm says, "Oh, please, not Jake." Yeah, I didn't like Jake as a character. I don't mind the actor. Actor's really cool. But I didn't like Jake as a character. I don't think he added much. And then he uses his status to change what Bajor does and how Bajor acts. Another thing that was interesting to me when talking about Sisko is in that exact same episode, and I'm sure you guys will be able to tell me the name of the episode, but in that exact same episode, he tells Bajor not to join Starfleet, and Starfleet's okay with it. How's that work? Now, I love the foreshadowing in this. This was wonderfully written. Deep Space Nine has some wonderfully written pieces where they talk about how the locusts come down and will destroy Bajor. And had Bajor joined Starfleet, joined the Federation at that time, it would have completely and utterly caused their annihilation. Because the Dominion would have came in, it was a Federation territory, they would have been absolutely destroyed. So it's good they didn't join Starfleet, and it kind of pulls it all together. And it never really references it. I love subtlety like that. You have to figure it out on your own. But he talked Bajor out of joining the Federation, and Starfleet did nothing about that. They had no issue. They were just like, all right, well, apparently the prophet of Bajor, who is a religious figure, even though the Federation is very much atheist, he says not to do it. All right, we're just going to keep it moving. And again, it may also come down to how the Federation just had, or the Starfleet had so many things they had to deal with, they couldn't really handle. They didn't have the resources to take care of this rogue officer. And the rogue officer was getting results, and so he's not doing anything crazy, right? No Stripe 361, and in the original series, there was a religion ceremony. It was mainly the Next Generation that went on and on about the anti-religion stuff. Correct. So, in the original series, I think Terrans, the United Earth, still had religion. And I think a lot of the Federation still had religion. I think there's a good argument for that. In the Next Generation, they moved away from that so hard, and they made it seem like the entire Starfleet or the entire Federation moved away from it. Deep Space Nine didn't do anything to stop that. Deep Space Nine continued that that Starfleet and the Federation had largely moved away. Now, I think you can make an argument that Vulcans were still very religious, and a few other species, but as a whole, Starfleet and the Federation had moved away from it. And again, the Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager all moved away from that. And so, and that was basically Gene. I think that Gene Roddenberry in the Next Generation, he had more control. Ironically, Gene Roddenberry in the Next Generation had a lot more control than he did in the original series. And that's why we see a lot of the things, at least for a little while, and that's why we see a lot of the things that doesn't make a lot of sense. The unreasonable pacifistic nature of the Federation and Starfleet in the Next Generation, not only turning away from religion, bashing religion. And so I really, that was more a Gene Roddenberry era thing. Patrick Drahushk. How do you say your name? Can you spell that out for me in the chat so I know how to say it? So are humans allowed to have a religion, or are they allowed to go to church if they wanted to? So I don't think they were allowed to have a religion. They didn't, when Sisko decided to join, he other Terrans and Starfleet officers looked at him really weird, looked at him kind of odd, but he was allowed to have it. They were diverse, right? And so they were allowed to. It was just very weird, especially for Terrans, to have any form of religion. And I think that, again, that was, again, a Gene Roddenberry move. Drahushuk. Okay. Gene was the reason everyone was smug in early TNG. Just look at the Ferengi episode. Absolutely. Stefan Dabik, Cassidy Yates, and Joseph Sisko were Christians. I would like to see your Alpha Canon proof of that, because I don't think there's anything that necessarily. Cassidy Yates, for sure. Cassidy Yates goes out of her way, I believe, towards the end to say, I don't believe what you believe. I don't think these are real gods. I don't see that. But I love you, and I'm going to trust you. And that's what Cassie says to Sisko. So I would need an actual episode to go back and reference that. At Lore Reloaded, DS9 did not show the positive side of religion. Sisko repeatedly endangers his family and friends for the sake of his religious beliefs. Also, don't forget the Bajoran caste system. I disagree, disappointed optimist. I would say that, again, it shows both the pros and the cons. The cons, again, he was choosing his religion over his duty and over his family, but it was also showing that as a religious person, he was growing in methodology, he was growing in culture, and a lot of the things that they were being told to him were right. So this religion that he believed was accurate. And another thing, I really love Kira and her belief in the prophets, especially when you bump that against the Dominion and the Changelings. So in another episode, you have a Weyoun who betrays the Dominion, and Odo comes to pick him up, right? And Odo and Weyoun are having this discussion, and ultimately Weyoun kills himself so that the other Dominion ships won't go after Odo. And Weyoun, this is me paraphrasing, but Weyoun, asks, are you proud of me, Odo? Are you happy with what I did? And Odo says, yes, I am. I'm actually, I approve of what you did. And so Odo's having issues with this, and he's talking with Kira about how this is, bugging him. And Kira says no. It shows how tolerant she was of other religions. And she says no. She says, the Weyoun looked at you as a god. He looked in your face, and he saw his god tell him that he was proud of him, that you did something right. And she couldn't see any other greatest thing to be told to her. And so I think that it kind of shows the happiness that religion can come to, and that people can have differing opinions. So again, I think it shows. I'm not saying that it's like all pro religion. I think it's more anti-religion that's pro, but it does show some good things. 14K Liam, I like what Voyager did with its first officer, with him being religious. I don't. I think that they used him as a stereotype, and I think that it was somewhat insulting to Native Americans. That's my opinion. I don't think they did it well. I really don't. Below average 355, I thought Odo's struggle with his role as a deity to the Dominion people was one of the most interesting things DS9 commented on. So, an interesting thing with Deep Space Nine, religiously, is it showed us three different aspects. It showed us atheism in Starfleet, in the Federation, in most Terrans. It showed us the prophets, or the wormhole aliens, as gods. And then it showed us the changelings from the Dominion as gods. And you even had battles between gods where the prophets stopped the changelings from being able to control or send their fleets. And so one god is more powerful than another in that aspect. Tentacle Pentacle, why am I banned from the chat? You're not. I see you quite clearly, and no one has banned you, to my knowledge. Nate Wilson, it was unnatural selection that had Starfleet research experiments on humans. Okay. Laughable Larry, $9 saying you're amazing. No, Laughable Larry, you are amazing. You, good sir, are amazing. On that note, by the way, guys, I am celebrating 15,000 subscribers. We're actually at 16,000, soon to be 17,000. It's just insane. I am so, for lack of a better word, blessed, since we've been talking about that. It's really crazy what's been going on, and I want to give back to you guys. So as a part of that, I will be giving Eagle Moss collectibles. And if you are subscribed and you comment on my video starting from yesterday going to the end of the month, every time you comment, you are going to go into the pool, and then I'm going to do a random choice. If you are if you're in the United States, I will send you out, if you win, a collectible of the Galaxy class to you guys. Will be sent out to you. If you're not in the United States, I'll send you a message. We'll talk about it. If you can meet me halfway, maybe I can send it, but it is really expensive to send it anywhere that's not the United States for me. If you're a patron, you can be a patron for as low as $1 a month. Patrons will get a chance to win a Sovereign, which will be sent, will be chosen on the 2nd of March, and will be sent out at that point. So, but really, I just want to give back to you guys. I'm also going to be doing giveaways with Star Trek Online and stuff like that. And, I just kind of want to give back to you guys. So, if you're not in the United States and you're chosen, we'll talk. I'll see what I can do. I cannot afford to send it somewhere else. You'll have to work with me. If you're in the United States, it'll all be on my dime. If that makes you upset, I'm sorry. Once I get up to 100,000, we'll do it all on me. Okay? That's my promise. At 100,000 subscribers, I'll be doing another giveaway, all on my dime at that point. Going back to what we were saying. Oh, hey, Lori, if possible, think you can suggest Eagle Moss to make Star Trek Online ships like the Hestia class? I'll send that in. I know that Eagle Moss and Star Trek Online, they actually talk to each other, so I'll send that in. So talking about Sisko and the religion, didn't Ben Sisko refuse to be a part of the Bajoran's spiritual leader? At the beginning, he did. And I think that he never liked the fact that he was the emissary until about mid series. And when he embraced it, he was atheist as well, beginning out. He didn't believe. And so he didn't enjoy that. Ultimately, he changed his mind based on his experiences and his moves with the prophets, though, or the wormhole aliens. When it comes to gods, the one thing about Star Trek, I think, outside of the original series, is that it does... it either outright denies God or it just doesn't give you any evidence. Interestingly enough, of all of my issues with Star Trek Discovery, I think they did it absolutely well. That was one of the things I liked about Star Trek Discovery. So when you had Stamets and the Mycelium Network, right? And he says, am I dead? Are we, in heaven or hell or whatever? And evil Stamets is sitting there and messes with him. And then he says, you're not dead. And does God exist? I don't know. We're not, everybody's still alive. You won't know till you're dead. I love that. I love the fact that it just has that conversation, that they just leave it open. And I guess that comes back to why I get in so much trouble. I guess that's why I get in so much trouble, because I more have a centrist view on these things when it comes to religion. At best, I don't think you can really know whether a God exists or not, and I don't think it's bad to leave the door open. And I like when they try to present both sides of the argument when it comes to stuff like that. That's just my opinion. A lot of people get mad about it. At Lore Reloaded, did you like the last episode of Discovery and how it ended? I did not. I actually did do a video on it last Sunday called AfterTrekShow. I did not enjoy... Well, I didn't like most of it. Some of it was all right, but I didn't like most of it. Mini question. Is Discovery worth watching? From Below Average 355. I wouldn't suggest anyone pay to watch it, and you definitely shouldn't steal it. If, unlike every series that has come before it, it is more interested in a message than it is Star Trek. It is a show that has a Star Trek skin, but is not interested in being consistent with what has come before. If you can accept that, and you can more look at it as a reimagined, then you might enjoy it, and it might be worth buying. But if you like something that is more interested in telling you how to think, is more interested in telling you who are bad people, then if that doesn't sound good to you, I wouldn't suggest it. No Stripe 361 or John Stevie. Hey, what's going on with you too? Sinbad at Lore Reloaded. Are you worried they might F up with the design of the Enterprise interior? They're going to. They've already messed up the exterior. They don't care. They did the damn window. This is not in the Prime timeline. I don't care what anybody says. The Enterprise, first off, that asset looks like it can be purchased. I really think they got it from Trek Yards. I think that Trek Yards on the down low made it for them, which is, I like Trek Yards. I think they make great stuff, but I think that they got it from an independent source and didn't make it themselves. But beyond that, it has that damn window at the top where the bridge is. The original series Enterprise had no fucking window. It is not Prime timeline. The bridge will look some form of Kelvin. It will look something like Kelvin. Just be honest about it. That's all I wish they would do. I wish they would stop being liars. And I lost what I was talking about. I'm sorry, that really frustrated me. I shouldn't curse. I apologize for cursing. What were we talking about? So they made another freaking timeline. Come on, it's not. The OG Enterprise did have a dome on the top, which they zoomed in on through a couple of times. It did have a dome on the top. I absolutely agree. It did have a dome on the top. And you know what it had on those domes? 2 windows that you could see. Not this huge square thing that people look out of. Compare them side by side. At Lore Reloaded, I agree that Star Trek Discovery is not the Prime Universe. Do you think CBS Paramount decision to not hire people who worked on Star Trek before was a bad one? I think it was consistent with what they wanted to do with the episode. I think that they didn't have any real interest in making Prime Timeline. I think they wanted to reimagine Star Trek, and I think they wanted to have an agenda that was very heavily anti-Trump. And I think that's what they did. And I think that was their task, and I think that's what they accomplished. If the Federation joined the Dominion instead of all of the Cardassians, how would the Dominion War be different? If the Federation had joined the Dominion, that would have been the end of the war. The Klingons would have been stomped. The Romulans would have been stomped. They could not have stand a Dominion Klingon or a Dominion Federation alliance. Are you kidding me? That's the end of the Alpha and Gamma quadrant, and they might as well start moving to the Delta quadrant. Yeah, I shouldn't have dropped the F-bomb. I'm going to be demonetized now. I'm demonetized anyway, but I'm just going to definitely be demonetized. Star Trek Discovery didn't purchase the lore DLC, says Jeremy Charles. I am sorry for cursing, guys. I try to keep this PG just because that's how I want my channel run. I don't have any issues with people who don't do that, but it's just frustrating. Opinions on a militaristic Starfleet. I honestly, personally, like the end. I liked Starfleet at the end of the Dominion War. Then I like the TNG Starfleet. I think the Dominion War Starfleet, or Dominion era Starfleet, makes more sense than the Next Generation era Starfleet. I do think, ultimately, that... Whoop. Did my stream mess up? I do think, ultimately, that it goes against what Gene was looking for. And I would be willing to accept that... Maybe go back to the original series. I think the original series was as realistic and as huggy-feely as Gene could get, and it still be okay. But yeah, I like Dominion War. And for all intents and purposes, Starfleet has always been militarized. they're lying to themselves when they think they're not. They just are. Slight slip-ups happen. I'm PG, and I'll admit I have slipped a few times, including in life. At Lore Reloaded, do you feel that there is hope for the Star Trek franchise going forward? Maybe a return to the legit Alpha Canon series or something? I feel like it's really on the edge of a cliff. I think that people who were either born or were kids in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, that Star Trek is gone. And for a couple of reasons. But I think that's just what happens. I don't think we'll see Star Trek return in the way that we want it to. I think that we'll only see it in fan films, if at all. And I think they've moved towards younger generations. And I do think that Discovery is what younger generations, people who are in their teens, in their 20s, want to see. I think that CBS is screwing themselves because I think Generation Z is far, far more conservative, and I think they'll reject Star Trek straight out. And I do think we'll see the end of Trek within the next 10 to 20 years. Now, I might be wrong. I could absolutely be wrong. And I hope I am. But honestly, there comes a time when things need to end. Things have not. Everything that has a beginning has an ending. That's just the way it is. Welcome to life. And it's okay for things to end. So, that's my opinion. Sinbad, if they go forward with Star Trek, I'm hoping to God they freaking follow Star Trek Online. I would accept Star Trek Online at this point over Discovery. I think that there are advantages to Star Trek Online. I think Star Trek Online has an issue with because they have to do an MMO, and MMOs generally have to have a lot of combat, they have to have a lot of movement in them. So they have to write these war scripts that aren't necessarily with what we saw before. But I would like to see Star Trek Online used a little bit. Let's be honest, some of BSG and even Voyager did not age all that well. I would agree. Battlestar Galactica, Babylon, even Babylon 5, Stargate, stuff doesn't necessarily age completely well. And so here's a perfect example, right? I think Battlestar Galactica is an awesome example for this. Battlestar Galactica, I love the reimagined. Absolutely love it. I'm going to start, now that I'm in a position where I can start paying people to do a little more of the other work, I'm going to be able to put out more videos. And I absolutely love Reimagined. And I'm going to do some lore on it. I think it's excellent. I really love Stargate, too. A lot of people who grew up with the original Battlestar Galactica hate Reimagined. And I can see why. It is completely different in almost all respects. Completely and utterly different. And so when I've actually considered that, you know? And so I can understand why people don't like the Reimagined, because it wasn't done for the people who grew up with the original Battlestar. I think that's a good analogy, in fact, even though that's not the point of what the person commented. By the way, someone said Jake Sisko over Wesley. Jake Sisko all day, every day. I don't like Wesley, and I can't stand Will Wheaton, so... Never really... Farscape was one of those I couldn't get into. I mean, I watched a few. It was alright, but I couldn't... It's hard for me to follow Farscape. It seems like I have to watch it from beginning to end. And, I don't know. It just wasn't my bag. Star Trek Discovery's Klingon War broke canon. But if Axanar were allowed to continue, would they have broke canon with the Klingon War as well? I don't know. I don't know where they were going with Axanar. I don't know where Axanar... Axanar was based on the 4 Years' War, which was based on beta canon, not alpha canon. So, assuming that they kept with that, they're already outside of what alpha canon technically had, right? So... Yeah. I would have been interested to see where they went with it. I thought they could have done better. Because, again, Axanar was based on... And this is... Let's not look at Alec Peters. Let's just ignore all the behind the scenes. Let's just look at the actual product. Axanar, I think, was consistent with what kids from the 70s, 80s, and 90s wanted to see. And I think that's why we would have liked it and it would have been better. Yeah, see, I can... So, Paths Unwritten, that's One Shield Cat. Yeah, watch. He doesn't care. He doesn't care at all. He always hangs out with me and he's always there, so he's used to me. I will turn on a dime. He doesn't care. He's used to it. Wheaton's tabletop games were solid. Agree to disagree, Von Miller. Yeah, so, man, you guys get me off topic easy. You seem to love it. Lore Reloaded, what do you think of the fact that most of the captain's ready rooms had windows? 14K Leon, I saw you said you did not like that. I mean, technically, the windows are supposed to be armor or whatever. They're supposed to be the exact same thing. I mean, it doesn't matter. Once shields are down, especially if you're on a galaxy, your ship's destroyed. So it doesn't matter. I think that Windows in the next generation era is reflective of the way the Federation was from a pacifistic stance. I think it being on a Sovereign class ship makes sense. Sovereign class ships were designed to impress people more than to actually be in battle. Voyager, I think maybe it was just a holdover. I'd be interested to see the Ready Room. I don't think the Defiant had a window in its Ready Room. I'd be interested to see what the Prometheus class, if they had a window. Because when you're looking at Deep Space, or when you're looking at the Akuras, when you're looking at the Defiants, when you're looking at the Prometheuses, I could see a lot of windows not being there. But it's Federation and Starfleet designed to have windows, so the fact they're there and the fact that they can just say, oh, it's whatever, this aluminum that you can see through, that, you know, I don't get too upset of it. David Whalen, ever heard of the Stellaris Star Trek mod? I do. I've actually played it. I have it on my computer as we speak. Do you, below average, 355, do you prefer sci-fi to use more realistic ship designs or a bit more fantastic? It depends on the science fiction that I'm looking at. The world that I'm in, if it's supposed to be more realistic, more gritty, then I expect it. So, like in Aliens, the movie, I expect that to have a little more grit, be a little more realistic. In Halo series, I expect it to be a little more realistic just because of the way that they've designed these things. But like Star Trek or other things, if it fits in the world, I don't get too upset about it. Like Orville, those ship designs make absolutely no sense, so I don't get too upset about that. Transparent aluminum, thank you. At Lore Reloaded, if you could, JSim, at Lore Reloaded, if you could reimagine Star Trek Discovery in the Prime Universe, how would you do it? I actually am considering, and I may do a series where I rewrite Discovery. I forget his name. I've copied some of the things he did early. I don't do it anymore. And he does Game of Thrones. And he has like Chad Summerchild is a character that he plays on it. But he actually rewrites the episodes and how he would make it better. I've considered doing something like that on Discovery, and I might. I mean, if I rewrote it, I would have an ensemble. I think setting it during the Klingon War would be very, very interesting. Even having it as a religious icon, Takuvma, bringing everyone together to bring all 24 houses together to attack the Federation. I'm on board with that. I could even be on board with the trying to use the Federation's diversity as a rallying point of how, you know, we want to remain Klingon. For me, I would have showed a lot more of the actual war. The war would have been more focused on the struggle, and it would have been more focused on seeing the actual damages and things done. I do like Starfleet remaining Starfleet, and I think a lot of it should have been focused on how, for half the season, they're losing. And you start seeing on the edges, you start seeing ships that are like destroying, attacking unarmed planets or unarmed ships. And so the crew has to sit here and watch the Starfleet slowly crackle or slowly crumble and try to bring them together and stay Starfleet. I would have used a lot of things from... I would have used the Duras family. I would have used quite a bit before. David Whalon at Lore Reloaded, Big Brain Twister. What's your all-time favorite Star Trek character? I really, really liked Lorca up until he went all Trump. I do think Lorca was a very interesting character. Gul Dukat is way up there as well. Yeah. I'd say those are in the top 3. I like Sisko, of course. I would have Discovery actually discover things, says Thomas Potts. Yeah, see, that's the thing. For me, I like the war scenarios. I like the Dominion War. I like bumping up Starfleet ideals, Gene Roddenberry's ideals against a force and seeing what happens and watching the characters naturally evolve from that. I was a more Deep Space Nine, a more even Voyager than I was The Next Generation, just exploring and finding new civilizations. Von Miller, they discovered the spore drive and they never got rid of it. Still exists. That's going to be in one of my Star Trek Online lores soon. Where was Section 39 in the Klingon War? I don't believe they wouldn't do anything to help. Yeah, that's another issue. We know that Section 31 existed even before the Federation existed. And so what were they doing? Why weren't they getting more involved? It's just one of those things. When you create something like Section 31, and then you make it exist, and then you have a prequel, these are the issues you have, you know? At Lore Reloaded, you try the Bajoran Interceptor on Star Trek Online? I have not. I don't even think I have it. At Lore Reloaded, do you have a fave alien race? Ask Alexandra Sandu. Unfortunately, you're going to be disappointed to think less of me, Alexandra. I really like the Orions. I like the way their society works. I also like the fact that the females are in control, but it doesn't look like that. It's kind of a way of tricking other species. I also like Betazoids, and I find the Bajorans very interesting. We're going to be ending this pretty soon, guys, so if you have any questions, let me know. We'll be finishing it up. One last time, I am going to let you know, 15,000 subscribers. Thank you guys so much. I truly appreciate that, and one of the things that we're doing as a giveaway. So once this goes video on demand, don't forget to comment and, of course, subscribe and rate. But I'm going to be putting all of those in the hopper, and I'm going to be sending out a Galaxy class from Eagle Moss to you guys in the mail. And if you're a Patreon, you can become a Patreon for as little as $1. On March 2nd, you will be getting, someone will be getting a Sovereign class. And, of course, you get all kinds of advantages becoming a patron as well. Below average 355. I remember growing up with Trek. I'd get back from hockey practice, then sit and eat Hot Pockets watching TNG and Voyager on Spike. I think my nostalgic glasses might hurt my view of Discovery. Yeah, below average 355. I agree. I think that going into it when Star Trek Discovery wasn't going to be prime, I think that hurt it. And then they went all political, you know? When are you going to start working on your next alternate Trek history episode? I already am, but there is voting in the community tab. By the way, guys, if you go to the community tab, you'll see that there is a vote for what my next alternate Trek history will be. Right now, it looks like the Dominion Wars is going to win. If you're a patron, I'm going to do another poll that's a little bit deeper into what I do with the Borg Wars, but definitely go check the polls in the community tab. Just go to my channel, go to community. I do a lot of polls that really directly impact the videos that I do on the channel. With that, I think we're going to end it tomorrow. I'm going to be having Deep Space Nine Starship Lore Breakdown. Really looking forward to that. Guys, don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. I want to thank you so much for watching this channel, and I'm going to see you on the next Lore Reloaded.